And welcome everyone to Gamecock on the Right, episode 5. I'm your host Dakota, and today I am with a special guest. His name is Dylan Baldassarre. He is the former president of Turning Point and the current Turning Point advisor for the state. Dylan, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be here.
Yeah, cool beans. Well, I know that you and I talked earlier about conservative politics over the years at USC, and how we've had our highs and our lows.
Oh, we definitely have. I'd like to. Most of it was I would say a high though. We really did a good job while I was here. We built a great club and really galvanized people on campus, especially during COVID.
Oh yeah. As a freshman that came in during COVID, I can attest to that. Everything was locked down. Everything was super grim, super dark. And lo and behold, there was Turning Point, the only people doing in person, kind of trying to defy the authoritarian COVID stuff. And y'all did a good job. Y'all were known for that for many years.
Well, yeah, the big thing was, like you said, we were the only club on campus having meetings, and I was just hosted at Uncensored America last week, and I talked exactly about that and how we were the only club on campus that was doing anything during COVID. Even the college Republicans weren't doing anything at that point, different college Republicans from the good one we have now. But back then, they just went into their little hidey hole because I guess they were a resume farm back then. But there was nothing else. YAF didn't even exist yet at that point, and we were it. We were out there. Obviously, all the left-leaning groups were like, shelter in place. We have to stay home. We can't leave. But we were out there, and that's attractive to a lot of people, especially students who are trying to start their college career and make some friends. Why would they want to join a club? Oh yeah, you could look at these people through a box. You could connect with these people through a box. Online, on Zoom, wherever. We knew that wasn't a recipe for any sort of success, and we knew that if we really capitalized on meetings in person and doing things in person, that we'd be successful, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and I remember as a freshman, like, I was always into politics, even since I was a kid. But I definitely thought that, going in, no one had meetings. Like, any club, it was all virtual, and I had a bunch of interests I wanted to get into, and they weren't doing meetings, and a lot of these things were things you couldn't just do virtually. So I was just sitting there I got nothing to do, and then there's Turning Point. I was like, well, I like politics, let me go. So I went, and I ended up making a lot of friends in Turning Point. A lot of my friends went to Turning Point because it was basically the only thing to do. It was the only way to go and reach out and mingle with other people. And it just kind of that became the crutch for everything else we've done. And, shortly after that, and AFL was also doing meetings at the time. So I went to them, and from AFL and Turning Point came YAF, which, we kept growing and growing and growing. And then the rest is history. But I think that Turning Point definitely started, especially in COVID, because I know that you said to me that Turning Point was not a huge thing until COVID, basically. COVID really got them off the ground.
Well, 100%. We had been making progress in the spring before. We took over. There was an exec board in place when I got here the year before you did. And there was an exec board in place that, was just completely incompetent. Basically, the president was doing everything, and she had said some things that had alienated some people. And so my other buddy, Dom, who was a senior at the time, basically forced an election mid-year and said, your exec is not doing their job. You've alienated people on campus. We're having an election. And then she didn't even decide to run again. She was just like, okay, you just run the club. So he took over, and we were making good progress, and we were having debate watch parties for the Democratic primary at that point. This is early 2020, right before COVID. And we were starting to grow. The meetings were getting there. We were probably, went from 5 to 6 to maybe, 10, 15, probably more like 10. But COVID really helped us, because even when COVID first hit, it didn't look good because we had been making progress. But then we decided, we're not going to completely end the semester. At a point where everybody was sent home, obviously we could not have meetings in person. It just wasn't in the cards. Campus was completely shut down. So we did have Zoom meetings at that point, like in
that was
May,
a little bit
June,
more
July. And that got a lot of the incoming freshmen to kind of join and say hello before they got to campus. And then once they got to campus, they showed up along with all the people that we had gotten in the spring.
Yeah, I know that Emma, who right now is the current Turning Point president, said over and over again that she got in on those Zoom calls and got involved even before becoming a freshman. And I personally didn't know about the Zoom calls because I wasn't, like I said, politics probably wasn't going to be as big of a deal to me as it ended up being. And that's partly due to COVID and the response to COVID and that.
And I would say the election as well.
Oh, yeah.
The election, how that heated up in the fall semester, the 2020 election, and how contested and heated that was with, all the fraud going on and
that was a rough time.
Out.
Oh yeah, and it didn't stop either. It kept going and going for like 3 months.
Going for 3 months.
I mean,
so
you had the election, and then you had the in between, and then January 6th, and it was like a whole
exactly. And we were on top of all of it. I mean, I remember the meeting we had right after the election.
I do too.
My friend Blake's the president at the time, and he gave this speech that we had more people. That might have been. I don't want to say it wasn't like the most attended meeting we ever had, but it felt like it. I feel like because we were in the ballroom and every seat was filled. The seats were still spaced out at that point for COVID, but every seat was filled. And it was just, I don't know, it's just so many people just came out that night and they were just kind of looking for hope. Like everybody was kind of distraught after seeing what happened. And
yeah, I mean, myself included. Like I remember that day. I remember exactly what was happening because I went home. Everyone else was still here, and I was like, "Oh, go home."
Yeah.
My mom wanted me to watch the election with her, and we were eating Chinese food, watching the election, and we were like, "This is crazy." And then I came back the next week because the election was on a Thursday. It's on Thursday, right? Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
I think they probably called it on Thursday. They called it like they might have called it like the following Thursday. I don't know. I know the election was on November 3rd. They called it, I think, 4 days later on November 7th.
Okay.
If I'm not, so that wasn't the following Thursday yet. That was like probably, so if it was Tuesday the 3rd, it was probably like I don't know, a Saturday?
Yeah, the next, anyways, the next meeting, yeah. I do remember going to that meeting, and I do remember like the reason everyone was there is that like, we needed something. Yeah. Like we needed to be able to talk about it. You know?
And that was probably my favorite meeting that we ever had. And this was before I was president. I was on the exec as the social media guy. But, I was a big part of the chapter at that point. That was probably, and I helped put that meeting together. And then Blake went up there and gave like this really amazing speech. And that was probably the best meeting I think we've ever had. As sad as like looking back, as like somber as it was, because I mean, it was horrible what happened. But that was the best meeting we ever had.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a rather like, I was there basically from freshman year on, as that's kind of became one of my core friend groups. Like I had another friend group for some of my other stuff, but like I had a political friend group with Turning Point and YAF, basically the people in those organizations throughout. And I mean, I still think that the evolution of that still holds true today. But I think that definitely Turning Point was one of the things that kind of helped like a freshman kind of get involved on campus, because like I said earlier, it was not only was it the only place where you could at the time really, but people were drawn to it. We were kind of all in that ship together. Yeah,
100%. We were kind of in the same boat. Not only were we facing the Biden victory and that whole situation, but we were also facing COVID at the same time, and we knew after Biden won that there was going to be more lockdowns, more tyranny, vaccine mandates. We knew all of it was coming, and we kind of had to band together and push back against it. And I think in terms of campus life, I think we did a pretty damn good job.
Yeah, I agree. And then I guess going into the time after that, I remember that Turning Point was still kind of, it was the big dog on campus. Like YAF had just started at the time. AFL was on campus, but they were kind of niche. They're the pro-life org on campus. So they're range is limited on pro-life issues. And I remember, I was the social media guy of YAF. That was my first involvement on campus. So I did YAF stuff, and then I did Turning Point stuff as well, because we had a lot of membership overlap.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. We had a good group, and everybody went to everything for a while.
And it was still the only thing that you really could do. I mean, we were the only ones willing to go out and actually do meetings at the time.
Yep.
But I remember that, Turning Point really was like it's very relevant on campus for those years. Excuse me, because of the COVID stuff. And that kind of gave them their name that they still have.
Definitely.
And y'all did tabling, y'all did all kinds of events, free speech, the big free speech beach ball.
Yeah. We did a few change my minds in there. We had a few guest speakers. We had Alan Wilson come, and it was still like COVID time. I think it was, when was it? Or was it right before COVID when he came?
No, it was during COVID, because I remember him.
No, he came back for YAF the next year, but the year before Turning Point had him. I think that was right before COVID when he came. During COVID, we reached out to a few guest speakers, but obviously with all the red tape and all that, it didn't really pan out.
Yeah. But I guess kind of what we wanted to talk about today is both obviously. I'm using Turning Point here as the example because they've been around the longest, and other than AFL, but they've had the most going on in the political scene of campus politics specifically. Yeah. So I know that you got in at the end of 2021,
2021,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I was the president for the 2022 year. That's how we did it from I was elected in November, officially became president on the first day of January, all the way to December 31st.
Yeah, and I remember that election. That was an interesting time.
It was a good time. That election was fun. It was it was a doozy, I guess, for some people.
I definitely would say that was a turning point.
Oh, it was. I mean, look, we were doing well even in that fall semester. We did well, but that election shifted things. That election definitely shifted things, and a few people got hurt because of it. But largely the club remained intact. But
yeah. And I remember that things went pretty well for a while until some bumps were in the road.
Oh, yeah. Well, things happen, and when you have a target on your back, and I talked about this last week, and I'll say it again. When you have success and you're on the conservative side of politics, especially on a college campus, there's going to be people who notice, and there's going to be people who don't like it. And then they're going to start plotting to take you down, and that's exactly what they did.
That's what they tried to do.
That's what they successfully plotted to take us down.
Yes.
So that's what they did, but they didn't take us down. But so basically, they sent spies into our group me chat, and they, took screenshots and different things like that.
I think for the people that don't know, I think we should kind of frame what we jokingly call.
Oh yes. So this whole situation, I guess, is we refer to it as Group Me Gate. So the whole thing originated when screenshots were taken. Actually, really only one screenshot was only taken from our Group Me, and then there were screenshots from a different Group Me, not even a Turning Point Group Me, of words that a few of our members said and used. And granted, they weren't good comments to make; they were derogatory. It wasn't good. But they took that, right, because they were waiting. They were sitting there in those group me's, whatever, waiting, basically stalking our members, waiting for them to say something dumb. And a couple of them did say something dumb. You have any group on campus, we're college students. People are going to say stupid things. You have 18 and 19-year-olds. People are going to say stupid things. So they banked on that. And, I guess short term, I guess they were successful in their plot. They got what they wanted, I guess, which were those screenshots. But really, mostly the screenshots that were taken, or the screenshot, I should say, that was taken from our group me, was really not even the worst of the comments. It was really a guy more so asking a question. It doesn't look good and it's worded poorly, but I wouldn't say that person is, this racist person, I guess,
I think that we should, I guess, clarify. So what happened is that this was towards the end of the COVID lockdown era. It was February in 2022, and the Student Senate had a vote that they were going to vote on a bill to formally renounce the mask mandate.
Basically, request the administration. We, the student body, say you must lift this mask mandate. This is not fair.
And Turning Point wanted to make their voice heard, so they were coming to go to the meeting to basically lobby for the Student Senate to reverse the mask mandate.
Correct.
And
we showed up with maybe like 30 people. Yeah, we had a lot of people there, and we had the senators who were on the floor debating the bill. And they basically had specifically one senator, I guess. I don't know. I guess I could use his name. I don't know. Should I use his name?
I
don't know. I'm not going to use his name.
Let's not use names.
I like him, though. I'm not about to say. I'm actually going to say something good about this person. I think he's still a member of the student Senate.
I believe he is as well.
But he stood up there, and he was going to go in, and he was originally going to vote against it. And then he looked out into the crowd and saw 30 people, and he said, "We've never had this many people ever come to a student Senate meeting to advocate for something. So obviously this is something the student body is passionate about, and I was elected to represent my people, and that's what I'm going to do." He voted in support of the measure, and it passed by one vote. Yeah. So a lot of credit to him.
Yep.
But then they were angry about that too. Like it goes back to when I said, when you're on the conservative side and you're successful on campus, people aren't going to like it. Mm-hmm. So we get that. We lobby the student senate, that passes. I think it was 2 days later. 2 days later was when they dropped the screenshots. Yeah.
So what happened was that Turning Point had their main group me, and there was a link to a separate group me within the main group me to this chat for the people within the Student Senate to communicate without talking, because it was an official proceeding.
Yeah.
And I remember that chat being there, and I remember I wasn't able to go because I had work at the time, to the Senate meeting. So basically what happened is that so that was on a Wednesday, because that's when the Student Senate meets. And you were right, on Friday, one of our friends who is in the Daily Gamecock, who's also involved in conservative politics, he got an early scoop that
it was coming.
Yeah. And then there was going to be a hit piece. It was going to be bad. Names were out there. It was pretty rough. So I'm at work at this time, on a different day, and I'm hanging out there, and I get a rather explicit text message from this friend. I will not repeat the exploitatives, but it was bleep
bleep three times in tandem, and then
it was a lot of bleeps.
And then we are bleeped.
in reference to Turning Point and all that. And I remember, as soon as that was sent, one of my coworkers walked us up to me, and we had this like kind of area where all the students were sitting at the front desk. So there was like 3 or 4 of us up there, and she goes, "Did you see what Turning Point just did?" And she holds out the screenshots, and I went, oh wow, as I'm like pulling my collar.
But that's the whole thing. That's the whole fake narrative of the whole thing is what she said. Did you see what Turning Point did?
Yep.
We did not do that. We did not make those comments. We never endorsed those comments. Most of the comments weren't even made in our group me, and they were made by people on campus who were, yes, members of Turning Point. But at the end of the day, they have a First Amendment right. We can't control what they say in a group me chat, especially one that isn't even ours. So it was so silly, and then, again, they were out to get us from the start. This was the plan. This is why they stirred up that narrative, because the plan was to send the spies in and then claim that the comments were made by our organization, and that's what they did. There were press release after press release, the college Democrats, the socialists at the time, I think who else?
There was a bunch of them.
There was a bunch of them. Iris, I think.
Yeah, I think they had something to say.
Yeah, a lot of them. And every statement had the same language. Statements made by Turning Point USA, calling for us to be dissolved, and they saw it as their window to take us out because they viewed us as a threat.
Yeah.
altogether because of what we were doing with the mask stuff, what we were doing with our meetings, what we were doing, advocating for Second Amendment rights, freedom of speech on campus, all things that they unilaterally reject.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that what we're also additionally, while that was happening, is that there was another storyline kind of going on simultaneously, and that was when there was one senator that really didn't like another senator and wanted her to be dealt with and use this as an opportunity to play politics.
Well, that's true. I'm going to say his name. His name is Noah Glasgow, and he's a bad guy, bad guy. So he decided that he was going to use a student organization and drag them under the mud to serve his political interest to become Speaker of the Student Senate. So he got the screenshots, and he was the one who originally obtained the screenshots. It was a whole thing, and basically used it to take out this more conservative senator who was also in that group chat where those comments were made. I think she had made the group chat, so that was the whole thing there. But really just not a nice guy, not a good guy, and I don't know what he's doing now. I think he's graduated, but I really hope he doesn't get anywhere powerful. I think that was his route, was to go into politics, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I don't really follow him or anything anymore.
Yeah, but I remember that, and I remember that there was an election shortly after that, I believe.
Yeah, and he won.
And he won. And as soon as he won, he deleted it.
Yep. He deleted as soon as he won. Yeah, he deleted his post, basically slandering us because he didn't want any blowback for that. I mean, look, it would have been tough for us to win a libel or a slander case because you have to prove that it actually did damage, and with the chapter and not so much a business, it's hard to prove because you don't have like financials or anything like that. But he didn't even want to risk anything like that, and he knew he was slandering us, and that's why he said, "I'll take this risk to win my election." And then once he won his election, oh no, I'm gonna retract. I'm gonna retract everything. So really just a terrible person.
I'd agree.
Really just an awful guy.
Yeah. But I think that I remember the aftermath of the GroupMe gate. I remember that immediately. I remember the mass exodus of everything Turning Point. Like the Garnet Gate cleared out.
Yeah.
The GroupMe gate.
Because people got scared because you had these crazy leftists making comments like anybody even remotely associated, anybody who has even turned their head and looked at a Turning Point table on campus should be expelled. It's so these people, people who don't understand that they could never get away with doing something like that. The university could never get away with doing something like that, and they're just kind of overly cautious and worried about their
it was fear.
Academic. It's fear, and fear is powerful. And if you don't have the experience in it and knowing exactly what your rights are, and I'm not faulting people for getting scared.
I mean, all of us
it's
were
natural
scared at the time.
Well, yeah, I was definitely scared, not scared enough to leave the club, but I don't fault the people who got scared enough to just outright leave the club to. I don't blame them. But this is why, that's why it's important for people to know what their rights are. So then when maybe, there is the prospect of people trying to, call for them to be taken away, well, I actually know the university can't expel me for this reason. That's a lawsuit. This is a violation of the First Amendment.
Well, now they definitely can't expel you because you graduated.
Well, yeah, now they can't expel me, but I'm just saying.
Anyone else.
Generally.
But I remember that night that everyone, us at YAF were actually rather split on the situation. I was admittedly a little worked up because our friend who sent us the "we are bleeped" messages was like
I said,
very panicked.
I don't fault him at all.
No, and I think
he had reason to be panicked, but.
And also,
in hindsight, it probably was an overreaction. We were fine. Because it wasn't us. The truth is, we didn't make the comments, so we were fine.
Yeah. And I think, but the thing was that everyone thought this is the end of Turning Point. This is just this behemoth of politics on campus just got destroyed overnight. And I remember that basically everyone prepared for that storm, and I remember that everyone was holding their breath for a week because it was during the weekend.
Well, it was a week. Exactly.
And I think we stopped.
Well, we called a lid. We didn't have a meeting. We we went quiet for a little bit, out of really just, really for safety, because I was getting threats. I think Emma was getting threats. A few people, other people on exec were getting threats. And so we called a lid just to, let people cool down and get it out, because we didn't know how many people would show up to attack us, because we were getting, destroyed on our Instagram page, hundreds and hundreds of people. So we didn't know how big this thing was going to get. So, I wasn't worried about getting expelled or anything like that, because I know they can't do that. But I was worried that, it could be the end of the success for the club, because, if you have this image painted about you and people believe it, the media is a powerful thing. They could destroy anybody, really.
Yeah. And I remember that, it definitely felt like we were scattered to the winds for that week.
Yeah.
And I remember that additionally, the leftist groups on campus decided they were going to have a counter protest to condemn us.
Oh yes, and here's where they overplayed their hand. So maybe they had a winning hand, right? I don't even think so. I think we would have recovered either way. I think this just kind of sped it up. Yeah, they had a protest on campus, I think a week later, against us, specifically anti-hate speech rally, which is just a weird thing to protest against, because who are you petitioning that to? What policy? Do you want to see the government restrict?
Yeah, they did. That was
opinions?
the thing.
I guess that's what it is.
I mean, these groups have outwardly said that
they're protesting against a public university to, restrict people's First Amendment rights, I guess. So,
yeah, that's
very odd.
I mean, they've been consistently saying that there is such thing as not allowed
there is
speech.
such thing as hate speech. Yeah, no, that's true. That is what they stand for. So I guess it's not that confusing.
I think that they basically they went up there on their stage fighting against hate speech, hateful speech, and then they decided to do exactly that.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They what they would have defined as hate speech if we said it, they said it.
Oh, yeah. And I think we got a clip for what they specifically said. If we can roll that.
It's better than me. And your moms are whores.
And our moms are whores. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. Well, I think he said your mom's a
Yeah,
whore.
your
I think
mom's a
directed at one of our members. We had a few members at the protest. I actually wasn't there. I think I had class or something. But yeah, we had a few members there, and that wasn't even the only thing they said. That's kind of just the tip of the iceberg. Basically, that same member who got that video said that they told him, "Oh, we know where you live. We will find you," making different threats like that. Several other witnesses corroborated that story. Said,
I was at that protest. They definitely said that.
Yeah, and they also they made fun of disabled people too. I think somebody said something where it was I don't know, making I think he used the word that is considered derogatory towards disabled people.
Yeah. I remember it was a very messy event.
Yeah.
And I remember we immediately called them out on it as YAF, and I'm pretty sure Turning Point did too.
Oh yeah, we did. We released statements basically that called out their hypocrisy. I think that statement's still on our Instagram.
It's on the YAF Instagram.
I'm very proud of that statement. I'm proud of both statements. Andre really wrote a good statement, and
he did.
I wrote ours, and I was really proud of that. I remember the last line was I hope the people who were calling for our club to be dissolved now understand that it is unfair to call for a club to be dissolved because of the words or actions of a few people.
And they shut up real quick after that. We did not hear from them for the rest of the year.
That was it. That was it after that. That was it. They stopped talking about, their little screenshots, their little psyop, I guess. And that was it. And then we recovered. We started having meetings again.
I remember the meeting afterwards. I walked in there and I did not know what to expect, because it was 2 weeks after, the GroupMe Gate occurred.
And then a week after the whole hate speech.
So
stuff.
we felt a little bit better after that, because we had that,
Yeah, we said, well, you know what? They done goofed, and they're hypocrites. And now, obviously, I think everybody can understand, whether you're right wing or left wing, that again, it is not fair, and it's also unconstitutional to call for a political organization to be solved and thrown off campus for those reasons.
But yeah, so I remember going into that meeting, and I wasn't expecting a lot of people to be there. And I remember there was a lot of people there.
There were.
It was like solid 30 people there.
Well, yeah, I mean, people felt safe again, and people felt emboldened, actually. They saw the hypocrisy, and maybe the people who were a little bit iffy on us, a little bit scared, saw the hypocrisy, and they were like, you know what? I have to stand with this organization because they were attacked by such hypocrites and such bad people that, we have to stand with this organization and stand with conservative politics on campus. And people came back, and we actually we recruited a lot of new people because of it. Actually, it kind of had the opposite effect when people were just following the whole thing that happened. There were conservatives on campus who didn't even know about us, and they were like, oh, yeah, I saw the article. It was ridiculous, that whole thing. And they started coming to meetings, and we had a really good event at the end of the semester that I'm still proud of. Was when we brought the Afghanistan veterans in with their organization and foundation, and they gave their talk, and we had about 40, 50
it was a good
people
good
there.
crowd that night. It was in the theater.
And the theater was the theater was the second time. Actually, I don't think as many people came when it was in the theater. The first one, a lot of people came to, and it was just in a normal room in Russell House, and it was a really cool event. A few people were like tearing up at the end. So
it was very powerful.
Yeah.
And I remember that now going into the next semester, because that was right towards the beginning of the semester. A couple weeks later, after Group Me Gate, the masks were rescinded. We didn't have to wear masks in March.
But yeah, I mean, partially due to the work that we did and the victory
yes,
that we
definitely due to the work we did. Now, a lot of people will note that I guess in this history of Turning Point that we're kind of focusing on, this was Turning Point. Turning Point won their big battle, essentially.
Yes.
And it was a 2-year fight that Turning Point won. And after that, I remember that everyone was happy. Like, I mean, I know the vibe on campus, very positive going out of the 2022 spring year or semester. And, we were looking forward to the next chapter. That was definitely a closing of a chapter.
Definitely. And
everyone learned from Group Me Gate. We all learned something from Group Me Gate. And we were moving forward. And that kind of takes us into the 2023, I guess it was still 2020, the 2022.
Fall of 2022, yeah.
Fall of 2022, after that summer. And this is kind of, I guess, the next chapter of Turning Point.
Yeah.
Was, we were going in. You were still president. We had, we were going in. We had a plan. And then we had another little bump in the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, that semester was good. I don't want to, forget about that semester. We did a lot of good things. We had that was the first time we ever had a Turning Point tailgate. We tailgated at the football games, and we had a lot of good people. We recruited a lot of good freshmen in that fall, people who really wanted to be involved with the chapter, and we had another gun range day, which went very, very well. I think that was probably the best gun range day that we had.
Absolutely.
It was really good.
I remember having a lot of fun.
We shot everything. They brought out the machine gun. I forget exactly what it was, but we got to shoot full auto. That was a good time.
I remember doing my funny voices and then shooting the automatic gun.
Oh yeah, like Scarface,
Yeah. I did Muscle Man.
Oh yeah, Muscle Man too. Yeah.
You do Muscle Man.
Man. I'm gonna shoot this gun, bro.
Yeah. We had a good time.
We did have a good time.
And it was really fun doing the tactical training, because that's what we were doing. We were doing, drawing, shooting, different maneuvers, and shooting off of barricades. And I mean, it was really like cool, like John Wick stuff.
Yeah.
And everyone had a great time. And I remember, meeting a lot of the freshmen coming in. Spending time with them. It was a good time to be around. And going into that, there was also something happening that was coming up at the time that we did that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were having a good time through the fall semester we had our meetings every week. People were showing up. We were doing our thing, and then we had an election, and the election was very polarizing, very divisive, and as a president, I think I completely did the right thing. I stayed completely neutral through all of it. publicly.
I think you did the right thing.
And, it was obviously you yourself. You were running for president against, current president right now. And, it got ugly. And, certain people, some people did something, as Ilhan Omar would say. Some people did something, and it got ugly. And, I don't feel the need to rehash every detail now because, there's people who are still involved with Turning Point and with, clubs on campus. I just don't want to rehash all the drama again. But the point is, things get ugly, and the big takeaway from that is really, really, you got to keep drama out of your clubs. You got to keep drama out of conservative movement. We're supposed to be all on one team here, all fighting a common enemy. It's already an uphill battle as it is on a college campus, and really in the country these days, it's an uphill battle for us. So, to be fighting amongst ourselves and getting petty during elections, it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it.
Yeah, and I remember that
it wasn't good.
It wasn't so much the I lost. That's what happened.
Yeah.
It's fine. I think it was more of the other things around that really made people soured.
Well, yeah, there were we had a lot of people there, and and there were comments that were made in front of the whole room that put a lot of people off.
Yeah, 3-minute long comments.
Yeah. It wasn't good.
And then there was a amendment proposed.
Oh yes, yeah, the amendment that was proposed at the end. So basically, after the whole new exec is elected, a friend of the new exec, a person who I won't name, but a person nonetheless, a friend who had been around Turning Point for a while, decided to go up there and basically propose an amendment that would all but ensure only all of her friends that were just elected to exec would be the only ones eligible to run for president in the following year. Right after the election. It was the most clearly slimy thing, and the whole room realized it right away. And we're like, is this club, are these people this petty? It was such an awful look, and people were like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of this. I haven't spoken to since. I think she might have been out for revenge on maybe me because this person is also the same person that I handily defeated the year before in the election. She had told me that, it's not personal, and then evidently it was personal. So she showed up, and that was a thing that happened.
I think that and the certain comments made were really kind of what that night was remembered for.
Yeah, it was not a good night, and I really hate that. I hate that. That's how my presidency was closed out, with just the chaos at the end, and I was just like, well, goodbye. Goodbye, I guess.
But I do want to say that I don't blame Emma for what happened that night.
I would never blame Emma for what happened that night. She was caught up in it, but I would never blame her.
I definitely, but I remember that because Emma wasn't the one that did it, right? No. Emma was kind of like outside of that drama, essentially.
And I give her credit because she sat there and obviously had just been elected and voted against that amendment.
She did. I remember that too.
That was proposed at the end.
But basically, because Emma was, I remember she came to us the night after that election and kind of wanted to basically, make sure everything was, not too bad. Everything was bad.
It was bad. It was bad.
But she wanted to talk about it.
An effort was made to try to mend it, and but
I think that because of that, I told you that I was like, because in my election speech I said, we have a national election coming up, and we need to have people on the ground being able to do the politics side of it. And I said I wanted to do this thing called Turning Point Action, which is not Turning Point USA. It is a
sister organization.
That is not a 501c3 nonprofit. It can endorse candidates. It can campaign. It can do all the politicking to get people elected. And I was like, we need to have this on campus because every group at that current time was a nonprofit. They could not endorse candidates. They couldn't have political rallies.
Well, yeah, because the original college Republicans that I was talking about before, kind of dumping on, I don't care, whatever. They were bad. They did a horrible job. they had collapsed completely. They were gone.
Oh yeah, I remember. I
They
remember
were
that
like-
election
yeah,
too.
that was a whole.
Oh, that was
a
three-part election.
That was another one, but
we had to keep going back.
we had to
three
keep going
times.
back. Yeah, it was bad. That one, you know, for their image, it was probably even worse than ours. What they did, but
times.
that was bad, and you know they kind of had a stranglehold on it. It was this one guy who was just using it for his resume and wouldn't give it up, but finally I don't know if he graduated or just was like threw his hands up, was like, all right, I've been here enough time to say, oh, I've done it for a year and resume, and then it was kind of just vacant, and we went to. This is a whole complicated process for how you started college Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
You went up the chain to the SCGOP, who you're not even affiliated with anymore because they suck. But you got it, and we have it, and it's here.
Yeah, but what happened was, and that's a little simplifying, but what happened was that I talked to the guy that does Turning Point Action, and I was like, I want to start a Turning Point Action chapter.
Okay.
Because I still wanted to work with Turning Point, because I was a member of Turning Point, and I wanted to keep a united front, and he basically was like, we don't really have chapters. We just kind of like exist. Go start a college Republican chapter. I was like, oh, okay. So then we started a college Republican chapter. And I guess I will say that the rest is definitely history. We've had a lot of success with college Republicans. And I don't think that we would have had that success if it wasn't for the fact that we had, like the world works in mysterious ways. We had a bad election that ended up changing campus politics.
Well, yeah, definitely. It shook things up on campus, and I think, kind of provided it just kind of opened the door for college Republicans to happen, I think. It was, the election drama was bad, and a few people just wanted to go a different way. And people wanted to get on the ground and campaign, I think, anyways, regardless of what would have happened in the election. I think people were kind of yearning for that. We hadn't had it on campus in a while, coming out of COVID. I think people really would have wanted to go to an organization that they could support campaigns with.
Yeah, and we've been around since April officially, but haven't really been doing stuff in April because it was like the week before finals week. So we've essentially been around since the beginning of the semester in mid-August, and it's now mid-October. We've been around 2 months, and we've done so much. I mean, you and I and our vice president and our club ambassador, a couple others, we met Donald Trump in person.
Yeah.
We recently met Vivek.
Yeah.
I mean, and there might be some
other things
coming soon that I cannot say because scheduling is a nightmare. But things are coming in the future. I have 2 very big speakers lined up. But nonetheless, I think that we as the conservative movement on campus, Turning Point, college Republicans, YAF, you name it, we have a common theme, and that's resilience.
100%.
And I think that this kind of shows that we can take a bad situation and we can do the best with it.
Yeah, I mean, in every case, you can take a bad situation and completely rebound from it.
Yes,
and
Turning Point has had their ups and downs. I mean, you guys took it over because of the bad situation with before y'all.
Yeah.
And then we had COVID. We made a good situation out of a bad situation. Group Me Gate, we came back stronger. And this now college Republicans here. I mean, the point of the matter is that we as a conservative movement are one to not take a hit and stay down.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's just the nature of conservatives, honestly. I mean, we're tough people because we've had to take it from the left for who knows. We see what
so
happens.
many facets.
And you look at leaders in the movement, whether it be somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy or Charlie Kirk or most notably Donald Trump, especially Donald Trump, because Donald Trump really reignited the fire in the conservative movement. And you see how he fights and how he doesn't back down when he truly believes something, when he truly believes in conservative values, when he truly believes in securing our border, fixing our economy, and putting our country first. And you see how he stands on those principles and does not waver in the face of anything that's thrown at him. I think that kind of gave our groups on campus that fighting spirit, and I think it totally gave groups and individuals all over the world that fighting spirit. And that's really just the nature of the movement right now. It was reignited with Donald Trump, and we have that fire now, and it's more. It's definitely easier to come out and say, I'm a conservative, I believe this, because thousands and thousands, maybe even millions of people across the country have come out and said, this is what I believe, this is what I believe in, I support Donald Trump, and it's kind of like a chain effect. Others see that, and they're like, you know what, then, I'll preach what I believe too. I've been silent as well, but I'm going to talk about the things I believe in. I'm not going to allow the left to dictate what's socially acceptable to talk about or not.
Yeah. I definitely think that over the last, 5, 6, 7 years, we have seen a resurgence in conservatism, really. I mean, we've seen people be excited about being a conservative, passionate about being a conservative. And I think that's rubbed off on us
100%.
as college students, and I'm a senior, so I'm on my way out, and you recently graduated, but for the last 3.5 years, this has definitely been something that I've been very involved with, and that is because of people like Trump, people like a bunch of the other people running. I think that
and the people you meet on campus who are just super principled, and you hear them speak and they don't waver. I mean, there's several people. I mean, I could go down the list of people I've met at college, other students that have inspired me to really deepen my understanding and deepen my convictions.
Oh yeah, I think that we're even though we're still growing and we still have a lot of work to do, I think that our resilience is what's going to help us win out in the end.
Hopefully it helps us win in 2024 if we have a clean election. I want to be optimistic, but
I have hopes.
You don't know.
I really do. I think that we've been fighting very hard, and I think that that's going to be rewarded.
Hopefully. I mean, they listen, to their credit, they have too. They come out and they will yell and they will scream.
Oh, we know that they'll yell and scream. We know very well.
I guess they probably haven't put as much work into this because, let's be honest, the work ethic isn't really there when we're talking about groups like OAT or whoever.
Oh yeah, we're our lovely friends at OAT.
They'll show up and they'll scream and yell, and then they'll go back to doing their drugs or something. I have no idea what they do.
Oh boy. Well, on that note. We will, I guess we'll start cutting it down. But thank you, Dylan, for joining us on the podcast. Like I said, we've always wanted to kind of give a voice to young conservatives, and you've been a very active one for the last couple of years on campus.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure. It was a good conversation.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for coming and watching Gamecocks on the Right. We will be streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and you can follow us on Instagram at USC_college_Republicans.
Partnering with Mug Club very soon.
Have a good one.